Hello and good day. Our topic for today is standard costing and variance analysis. In this video, I'm going to discuss the definition of a standard, the concept of standard costs, and the standard cost variance analysis. So without further ado, let's start. First, let's define standard. Kapag sinabi nating standard, ito yung benchmark, ito yung basis, or ito yung measure. I will give you example. Let's say you are a CPA aspirant and one of your dreams in life is to become a certified public accountant. If your dream is to become a certified public accountant, then your general average should be at least 75% with no grades lower than 65% in the CPA examination. Ito yung sinasabi natin na standard or standards. Kaya nag-set ng standard ang BOA or Board of Accountancy para malaman yung performance or para ma-measure yung performance ng CPA examinees. Sapat na ba yung performance ng CPA examinees or hindi pa sapat yung performance ng CPA examinees? Kapag naabot ng CPA examinee yung general average na 75% with no grades lower than 65%, then that means na maganda yung performance ng CPA examinee. That is the acceptable performance. Pero kung hindi niya naabot yung general average na 75% with no grades lower than 65%, then ang ibig sabihin nun, hindi pa sapat yung performance ng CPA examinee. That is not an acceptable performance. In business, standard is defined as a measure of acceptable performance established by management as a guide in making economic decisions. In other words, a standard is a benchmark or norm for measuring performance. In manufacturing companies, standards are classified into two categories. The first is called quantity standard and the second is called cost standard. Quantity standard indicates the quantity of raw materials or labor time required to produce a unit of product. This is normally expressed per unit of output. Meaning to say, ilang raw materials or labor time ba ang kailangan para makapag-produce ng isang unit of product. Let's say, 3 piraso ang kailangan para makapag-produce ng isang unit ng product. Then, yung quantity standard ay 3 pieces per unit. On the other hand, cost standard indicates what the cost of quantity standard should be. This is normally expressed per unit of input. Di ba ang quantity standard natin kanina ay 3 pieces per unit? Dito naman sa cost standard, ilan ba yung cost? Ilan ba dapat yung cost ng isang piece para makapag-produce ng isang unit ng product? Let's say, 2 pesos per piece. Yan yung sinasabi natin na cost standard. Since we are dealing with standard costing, merong tinatawag na standard costs. Standard costs are systematically predetermined costs established by management to be used as a basis for comparison with actual costs. Sa madaling salita, kapag sinabing standard costs, ito yung should be costs. Ito lang dapat yung costs. Since yung standard costs ay predetermined costs, normally magkaiba ang standard costs sa actual costs. Magkaiba ang kanilang amount. At dito na pumapasok yung tinatawag na variance. The term variance means difference. And in manufacturing firms, variance is equal to the difference between actual costs and standard costs. This is basically the difference between actual costs and standard costs. Meaning to say, variance is equal to actual costs minus standard costs. This variance should be described either as favorable or unfavorable. Kapag mas malaki yung actual cost kaysa sa standard cost, that is unfavorable. If the actual cost is less than the standard cost, that is favorable. In manufacturing firms, merong tatlong variances. Yung una ay tinatawag na direct materials variance. Yung pangalawa ay tinatawag na direct labor variance. At yung pangatlo ay tinatawag na factory overhead variance. In this video, we're going to focus on the first variance, and that is direct materials variance. Direct materials variance is simply called materials variance. Here, we are going to compute for the materials cost variance. Kapag sinabing materials cost variance, ito yung total materials variance. Para ma-compute yung materials cost variance, kailangan nating i-deduct yung standard materials cost from the actual materials cost. So, actual materials cost minus standard materials cost, that is equal to materials cost variance or total materials variance. Para ma-compute yung actual materials cost, tandaan nyo lang yung ACAP, AQ times AP, or actual quantity times actual price. Para naman ma-compute yung standard materials cost, tandaan nyo lang yung SICSIP, SQ times SP, or standard quantity times standard price. Actually, madali lang siyang tandaan. ACAP minus SICSIP, yun ay equal sa materials cost variance. Take note that the actual quantity here refers to the actual quantity used. At hindi pa natatapos sa materials cost variance yung direct materials variance. Kasi kailangan pa nating i-analyze yung materials cost variance. Kaya kailangan pa nating hatiin yung materials cost variance into two. Ang una ay tinatawag na quantity variance at ang pangalawa ay tinatawag na price variance. Unahin natin yung materials price variance or simply price variance. Materials price variance is equal to the actual quantity times the difference in prices. Meaning to say, actual quantity times actual price minus standard price. Ang tanong, anong actual quantity ang gagamitin? Is it the actual quantity used or the actual quantity purchased? Ang sagot, depende kung anong price variance ang kinocompute mo. Kung ang kinocompute mo ay purchase price variance or materials purchase price variance, ang actual quantity na gagamitin mo ay actual quantity purchased. Pero kung ang kinocompute mo ay materials price usage variance, ang actual quantity na gagamitin mo ay actual quantity used. Kadalasan, nalilito ang mga students kung ano bang actual quantity ang kanilang gagamitin. Actual quantity used ba or actual quantity purchased? Kung ang kinocompute mo ay purchase price variance or materials purchase price variance, ang gagamitin mong actual quantity ay actual quantity purchased. Pero kung ang kinocompute mo ay materials price usage variance or price usage variance, ang gagamitin mong actual quantity ay actual quantity used. Sir, what if the problem is silent? So, ang requirement lang ay materials price variance. Compute for the materials price variance or compute for the price variance. Ang answer, assume that it is a purchase price variance. Assume that it is a materials purchase price variance. So, ang gagamitin mo ay actual quantity purchased, not actual quantity used. Next, let's proceed to the materials quantity variance or simply quantity variance. Materials quantity variance is equal to the difference in quantities times standard price. Meaning to say, actual quantity minus standard quantity times standard price. Take note na ang gagamitin mo sa pag-compute ng materials quantity variance ay actual quantity used, not actual quantity purchased. Ngayon, tuturuan ko kayo kung paano madaling i-compute yung variances. Let's start with materials cost variance or total materials variance. Sabi ko kanina, ACAP minus 6SIP, that is equal to materials cost variance or total materials variance. So ilalagay na natin yung ACAP at 6SIP. But make sure na ang gagamitin yung actual quantity ay actual quantity used. After that, kunin nyo yung product ng ACAP at 6SIP. AQ times AP, that is equal to what? SQ times SP, that is equal to what? Kung mas malaki yung nasa itaas na amount kaysa dun sa nasa ibabang amount, ang variance ay unfavorable. Pero kung mas malaki yung amount na nasa ibaba kaysa dun sa amount na nasa itaas, ang variance ay favorable. So, ang format ay ilalagay nyo muna yung difference ng dalawang amounts tapos i-determine nyo kung favorable ba or unfavorable. Kung mas malaki yung amount na nasa itaas kaysa dun sa nasa ibaba, that is unfavorable. Pero kung mas malaki yung nasa ibaba na amount kaysa dun sa nasa itaas na amount, that is favorable. Next, sa materials purchase price variance naman, isulat nyo yung ACAP at ACSIP. AQ times AP, AQ times SP. But make sure na yung actual quantity na gagamitin nyo ay actual quantity purchased. Next, kunin nyo yung product ng ACAP at ACSIP. After that, kunin nyo yung difference ng dalawang amounts. And determine kung yung variance ba ay favorable or unfavorable. Kung mas malaki yung nasa itaas kaysa dun sa nasa ibabang amount, that is unfavorable. Kung mas malaki naman yung nasa ibaba na amount kaysa dun sa nasa itaas na amount, that is favorable. Next, sa materials price usage variance naman, isulat nyo yung AKAP at AXIP. But make sure na ang gagamitin yung actual quantity ay actual quantity used. After that, kunin nyo yung product ng AKAP at AXIP. Next, kunin nyo yung difference ng dalawang amounts. Tapos, i-determine nyo kung favorable ba or unfavorable. Kung mas malaki yung amount na nasa itaas kaysa dun sa amount na nasa ibaba, the variance is unfavorable. Pero kung mas malaki yung nasa ibabang amount kaysa dun sa amount na nasa itaas, that is favorable. Next, sa materials quantity variance naman, isulat nyo yung AXIP at SIXIP. But make sure na ang gagamitin yung actual quantity ay actual quantity used. Next, kunin nyo yung product ng AXIP at SIXIP. Pagkatapos, kunin nyo yung difference ng dalawang amounts. At i-determine nyo kung favorable ba or unfavorable yung variance. Kung mas malaki yung amount na nasa itaas kaysa dun sa amount na nasa ibaba, the variance is unfavorable. Pero kung mas malaki yung amount na nasa ibaba kaysa dun sa amount na nasa itaas, the variance is favorable. Take note of this kapag pinagsama natin yung materials purchase usage variance at materials quantity variance, ang result ay materials cost variance or total materials variance. Let us now apply those formulas by answering a problem. G's standard cost per unit of material H is 13.50 pesos per pound. During the month, 4,500 pounds of H were purchased at a total cost of 60,345 pesos. In addition, 4,000 pounds of H were used during the month. However, the standard quantity for actual production is 3,800 pounds. Requirements: compute for the following materials variances. First, materials cost variance or total materials variance. Second, materials purchase price variance. Third, materials price usage variance. And fourth, materials quantity variance. First, let's answer requirement number 1, materials cost variance or total materials variance. So, isusulat muna natin yung AKAP at SIXIP. But make sure na yung actual quantity na gagamitin ay actual quantity used. Ang actual quantity used ay 4,000 pounds. Yung actual price, kailangan pa nating i-compute. Based sa problem, 4,500 pounds ng H ang binili. At ang total cost nun ay 60,345 pesos. So, ang gagawin natin para makompute yung actual price, 60,345 pesos divided by 4,500 pounds. That is equal to 13.41 pesos. And that is the actual price. 4,000 times 13.41 pesos, that is equal to 53,640 pesos. Ang standard quantity naman ay 3,800 pounds. At ang standard price ay 13.50 pesos. That is given in the problem. So, 3,800 pounds times 13.50 pesos, that is equal to 51,300 pesos. At this point, pwede na nating makompute yung materials cost variance or total materials variance. First, kukunin natin yung difference ng 53,640 at 51,300. Ang difference ay 2,340. So, ilalagay natin yung 2,340 pesos. Next, i-determine natin kung favorable ba yan or unfavorable. Since mas malaki yung amount na nasa itaas kaysa dun sa amount na nasa ibaba, this is unfavorable. So, the total materials variance or the materials cost variance is equal to 2,340 pesos unfavorable. Next, materials purchase price variance. So, isulat natin yung ACAP at ACSIP. But make sure na yung actual quantity na gagamitin nyo dito ay actual quantity purchased. Actual quantity purchased is 4,500 pounds. At ang actual price ay 13.41 pesos. 4,500 times 13.41 pesos, that is equal to 60,345 pesos. Ang actual quantity purchased ay 4,500 at ang standard price ay 13.50 pesos. 4,500 times 13.50 pesos, that is equal to 60,750 pesos. At this point, pwede na natin makompute yung materials purchase price variance. First, kunin muna natin yung difference ng 60,345 at 60,750. Ang difference ay 405 pesos. After that, i-determine natin kung favorable ba yan or unfavorable. Since mas malaki yung nasa ibaba kaysa dun sa nasa itaas, this is favorable. So, the answer in requirement number 2, materials purchase price variance is 405 pesos favorable. Next, requirement number 3, materials price usage variance. First, isulat natin yung ACAP at ACSIP. But make sure na yung actual quantity na gagamitin dito ay actual quantity used. Ang actual quantity used ay 4,000 pounds. At ang actual price ay 13.41 pesos. 4,000 pounds times 13.41 pesos, that is equal to 53,640 pesos. Ang actual quantity used ay 4,000 pounds at ang standard price ay 13.50 pesos. 4,000 pounds times 13.50 pesos, that is equal to 54,000 pesos. At this point, we can now compute for the materials price usage variance. First, kunin muna natin yung difference between 53,640 pesos and 54,000 pesos. Ang difference nila ay 360 pesos. Next, i-determine natin kung favorable ba yan or unfavorable. Since mas malaki yung nasa ibaba na amount kaysa dun sa amount na nasa itaas, this is favorable. So the answer in requirement number 3, materials price usage variance is 360 pesos favorable. Next, requirement number 4, materials quantity variance. Isulat muna natin yung ACSIP at SICSIP. But make sure na ang actual quantity na gagamitin nyo dito ay actual quantity used. Ang actual quantity used ay 4,000. At ang standard price ay 13.50 pesos. 4,000 times 13.50 pesos, that is equal to 54,000 pesos. Ang standard quantity ay 3,800 pounds at ang standard price ay 13.50 pesos. 3,800 times 13.50 pesos, that is equal to 51,300 pesos. At this point, we can now compute for the materials quantity variance. Kunin muna natin yung difference between 54,000 pesos and 51,300 pesos. Ang difference nila ay 2,700 pesos. Next, i-determine natin kung favorable ba yan or unfavorable. Since mas malaki yung amount na nasa itaas, this is unfavorable. So, ang answer sa requirement number 4 ay 2,700 pesos unfavorable. Kapag pinagsama natin yung materials price usage variance at materials quantity variance, ang result ay materials cost variance or total materials variance. I-check na natin kung tama. Ang materials price usage variance ay 360 pesos favorable. At ang materials quantity variance ay 2,700 pesos unfavorable. As you can see, unfavorable yung isa at yung isa ay favorable. Since mas malaki yung unfavorable, this is unfavorable. Then, get the difference between 2,700 and 360. 2,700 minus 360, that is equal to 2,340 pesos. As you can see, pareho yung total materials variance or materials cost variance na compute natin dito dun sa materials cost variance or total materials variance na na-compute natin kanina. What if yung 360 ay unfavorable at yung 2,700 ay favorable? Since mas malaki yung favorable, of course, automatic na favorable na yon. At kunin nyo yung difference ng 2,700 at 360. That is 2,340. If ever na ganon, ang total materials variance or materials cost variance ay 2,340 favorable. What if parehong favorable? 360 favorable, 2,700 favorable. Ang gagawin nyo, i-add nyo lang yung dalawang amounts. So, 360 favorable plus 2,700 favorable, that is equal to 3,060 favorable. What if itong dalawa ay unfavorable? 360 unfavorable at 2,700 unfavorable. So, ganun din, unfavorable siya at i-add nyo yung dalawang amounts. So, ang magiging materials cost variance or total materials variance ay 3,060 unfavorable. As I said earlier, we need to analyze the variances. Bakit kailangan nating i-analyze yung mga variances? We need to analyze the variances because without analyzing the variances, hindi natin alam kung saan tayo magtitake ng necessary corrective actions. At hindi natin alam yung tao na responsible for that variance. Let's say, ang variance ay materials price variance. Ang possible causes nito ay quality ng materials, quantity purchased, at delivery time or rush orders. Ang responsible person for that materials price variance ay purchasing manager. Kung ang variance naman ay materials quantity variance, ang possible causes nito ay quality of materials, defective machines, unskilled workers, at poor supervision. Ang responsible person for that materials quantity variance ay production manager.